even Tony Gonsolin, like outside of like a half season where he was an all-star, like hasn't been at that level.
No.
Catman. Hey, can I tell you my favorite elevator story? I gotta tell you. So,
Okay.
1988 World Series, Game 1.
Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with two former Dodger beat writers and current columnists, and Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernández. And I only mention that because in your guys' beat days, I'm sure you loved these 10-game, no travel day road trips with 3-hour rain delays and 6 a.m. flights out of Miami as much as I am right now.
They were awful. But I got one question for you, Jack. You're in Arizona, right?
I am
For
now.
the Big Weekend Series, and you're from Phoenix area, right?
I am.
So
Oh,
are you staying at your parents' house?
I am not. No.
Bad son. Why not?
Horrible son.
Horrible son.
You know what?
Hey, doesn't like your dad have like a building in downtown?
He has
You
he
should
has
be
an
sleeping
office
in
he
his
works at. Yes.
Yeah, you should be sleeping in his office.
Oh,
Saving
see, now that would be an interesting idea. They live too far for me to. I did a spring once where I stayed with them and then was driving. This is when I was on the Angels, and even driving to Tempe, which is like half the distance it would take to get downtown. It's a lot
Well,
more convenient this way.
how far is far? How far away do they live?
Like 40, 45 minutes
Oh,
plus.
come on, Jack. See
That's
what's wrong with
nothing.
Dad?
Don't
I
worry.
mean, yeah, one
They're
time
coming Sunday, and then we
I was
have
in
nice
DC
Mother's
once.
Day plans.
I was in DC once when my brother was living in Baltimore, and I made that like our commute every day.
Are you just trying to get points, Jack?
The points might factor into some.
Oh my God, you're
Yes.
sacrificing parents for Marriott points.
Jack Woike.
That's my hobby. I write about baseball and I collect Marriott points.
Well, you're also one of those fancy Marriotts that doesn't have a desk, right?
More boutique, I guess, the AC hotels, which I do like, but no, this one doesn't have a desk.
How come I not have a desk? That's crazy. That's crazy. I hate that. That's terrible.
Yeah, your brother Dan Woike made me stay at a boutique hotel in Minneapolis on my last vacation.
All right, you've already trashed Wookie twice, Dylan. We
I didn't trash
get it,
him.
we
I
get
just
it.
said he and Jack.
Well, Dylan was expecting a whole postseason covering the Lakers with our Laker beat writer Dan, and didn't get it. So he's gotta get his licks in now. All right, sit.
Go ahead, bad son.
Since the last time we talked, you can look at this last Dodger week, glass half full, glass half empty. I'm going to give you both cases. The good, the Dodgers won series in Atlanta and Miami. They got huge weeks from Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani, who both look like they're back on track. They were the first team in the majors to get to 25 wins this year. And even in what's been a tough NL West ahead of what will be an interesting series, their first like real tough division test of the season this weekend in Arizona. They're in first place in the division. They're kind of where they want to be right now. On the flip side, they lost Teoscar Hernandez to an injury. They lost Evan Phillips to an injury. And in the two games that they did lose at the start of this trip, a couple of their early season roster weaknesses, in my view, were exposed, which is the workload on a bullpen that's already showing signs of fatigue, or they're already having to kind of manage around, guys' innings counts. And then a bottom of the lineup and a bench that just has continued to underperform, even as some guys individually have heated up here in the last couple weeks. Which of those cases resonates to the two of you more after watching this last week?
For me, it's half empty because
Shocker.
I see him playing in Arizona this weekend. I looked up in the last 7 games against teams that are legitimate playoff contenders. They're 1-6. So we'll see
Wow.
what happens.
The Braves are no longer legit.
No.
playoffs.
So I think this weekend is huge for them. I just think it's with Max Muncy has glasses and it still doesn't work. I think the bullpen's wiped out, and they're beating bad teams. We'll see what happens this weekend, but they're beating bad teams, and Freddie and Shohei are going to perform. Like there's no surprise there, but I just think the bullpen, and they miss Edmund and they miss Teoscar a ton. I think those are both things that'll come back to haunt them. But we'll see this weekend.
You're going to put Dylan in position to be positive here.
Well, I'm kind of looking at like the negatives, right? Is I'm going to separate kind of the offense from the defense. I mean, I do think, right, even like while losing Teoscar and Edmund not being there, the fact that Otani and Freeman got going, I think is obviously a good thing. I think the offense will be there by the end of the year, and the young Korean kid that they called up. I mean, he can at least run, right? I
I
mean,
forgot to put that in the glass half full
The
category.
comment, the comment. I love the comment.
The Comet. He's going to steal the new AAA nickname.
Yeah. No, no. Isn't what everybody calls him the comment?
Yes, because the affiliate is now the OKC Comets, where he started the season. Yes.
yeah. So I think I look at that and I'm like, okay, the offense is probably going to end up where we expect it to be kind of by the end of the season. Yeah, to me, it's kind of more about the pitching, right? The fact that, again, the top of the all these things, right? And it kind of played out like you said, right? In these losses where they just basically had to kind of go to, they're like non-leverage guys in leverage type situations. That was kind of the after effect of all this. But you kind of extend this out to October. And you kind of think like, okay, what is this going to look like, right? And just because they kind of got away with it last year, doesn't necessarily make that like the ideal, you know, um, way to go about things, right? Just kind of relying on kind of TBD to like be your ace almost.
Yes.
And right now, again, we gotta keep in mind too, right? Snell, it's shoulder. Glass now, it's shoulder. And Yamamoto has history with shoulder, and they're going to be kind of counting on an Otani maybe to be coming back. Kershaw. I mean, he barely pitched last year. Who is he at this point? I know, he looked pretty good in his last rehab start. I tend to, again, right, if you're going to have to kind of bet money on like a person, or people, Otani and Kershaw are two decent guys, I think, to put wagers on. But the reality is, we don't know how this is going to look. Yeah, and so the fact that like Phillips is now right on the IL, kind of adding to some list of some other guys that are already kind of shelved right now. To me, that situation is just kind of disconcerting. And again, you kind of look at this timeline that we think that they have with Otani, where he might not be back until like after the All-Star break. I mean, what do you do at the trade deadline at this point, right? I mean, because I think like what you do or don't do is going to depend a lot on what you think you're going to get out of Otani. You very well could just have like 2 weeks to make a call on that, which, what's that going to be? Two starts max?
Well, Dylan, didn't you write today that the Nickel Time should come back right now?
No, I just said that like I think that this was just basically Otani pitching this year to me kind of felt like a luxury, right? They won the World Series last year. They added Sasaki, they added Snell, and you're kind of thinking like, well, if Otani comes back, great, and if he doesn't, hey, look, you added two, high-end pitchers to a team that kind of just won a World Series. Now, though, I think this kind of feels now where they need Otani to not just come back, but they need him to pitch well, and right now we just don't know where this is going to go right now.
Well, the way I look at it is, and I guess to your point about how this could line up with the trade deadline and, kind of getting to are they going to have enough depth? The disconcerting part about how this has gone so far is that this last week feels so similar to the last couple years where, yeah, they're having to drop in a spot starter and go with a bullpen game. And then because of all that, they're in a situation where they're basically having to punt on a game, like we saw them do a lot down the stretch last year, like we saw
Yeah.
them do a couple times in October. Um, and I think that's a result of, when we talked about the depth they had coming into the year, we were including Shohei Ohtani, Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonsolin, some other guys who, weren't going to be back and ready to pitch right at the start of the season. And I don't think they were anticipating, yeah, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow both going down this early in the campaign. I do think longer term, like they might have a bunch of question marks, but it's like they have a bunch of lottery tickets, right? Or a bunch of 50-50 raffle tickets. And I think this year they have enough to feel like we have a good shot of having enough guys healthy by the end of the year to be in a better spot pitching wise we were going into last October. But like you said, some of that now depends probably more significantly than they probably wanted it to on Shohei Ohtani at least trying to come back and trying to pitch well and work back from a second Tommy John because it isn't a luxury anymore. It's going to depend on maybe Tony Gonsolin or Dustin May, evolving into a more kind of consistent, maybe not frontline starter, but somebody who you could trust to make real starts in a playoff game. It's gonna, there's probably a little more pressure now on Roki Sasaki to like be closer to the version of the guy that they, envision in case you need it. So I think long term, they're still in a better spot than they were last year, but it is still a lot of question marks. And I think you can feel more confident in the hope of, well, just given the sheer number of talented guys we have, we're going to be okay come the end of the season. But until you actually get there, every time you do have an injury, like even this one to Evan Phillips, which they both him and Dave Roberts were very declarative that this is a minor thing. He could have kept pitching right now, but they just didn't want him trying to pitch through anything at this point of the season. But every time you have a little situation like that, every time you have a Blake Trinan go down, it just puts a little more strain on everybody else. And I think early in the season, you've already seen how a couple injuries in the rotation puts extra strain on the bullpen, which puts them in a tougher spot, and it can become this like self-fulfilling cycle rather quickly.
Jack, I got to ask you about something that happened in Miami. You accidentally sent me a text that was meant for the Dodger beat writers, and it said, "You all have fun with the stairs." Explain that text. You all have fun with the stairs. Explain the text.
Well, I didn't realize I did that. You might have been confused with another Bill P. who
Bill
covers the
Plunkett,
Dodgers, Bill Plunkett of
the
the
great Bill
Orange
Plunkett.
County Register. You two get mixed up a lot, actually, both in texts and in public
So
appearances.
what about the stairs?
The elevator in Miami was broken, or
Oh,
was
that's brutal.
working sometimes and then not working sometimes. So as we were coming up from the clubhouse the other night, when I got on the elevator, it worked. But then once it got to the top, the door only opened halfway, and they're like, "Oh, it's broken again." And yeah,
So you were taunting.
I
You were
was.
taunting.
Yes, I was. That's
Good
how we
for
get
you.
through.
Good job. Way to go.
That's how we get through these 10-game road trips. You guys really missed a good 3-hour rain delay in Atlanta. That's what I'm disappointed you didn't get to sit through. That was
If I even thought the elevator was cranky or creaky, I wouldn't go downstairs. I hate stairs so much. I wouldn't have gotten any quotes. I just written on top of my head.
That's kind of crazy that like Miami, I mean, that's a relatively modern ballpark. I mean, I remember getting stuck in an elevator like at Shea, right? Like,
at one
Flash, when was the
point.
last time you were stuck in an elevator at a ballpark?
Me, never. But that's my greatest fear.
Mm.
I live in fear of that happening.
Well, at one point they were doing the elevator, taking it up and down with the door half open, so you could see like the interior of the elevator well. That was interesting. It's been quite a trip.
Yeah. Well, going back to this thing about the pitching here, you
So
talk,
Come
smooth
on,
segue, Dylan.
you kind of talk about these like lottery tickets, right? And the Sasaki May Gonsolin thing. I mean, I think part of the thing about having like these lottery tickets, right? And they had one last year in Bobby Miller isn't just that like, okay, this guy can fill a rotation spot. I mean, I think because of especially Sasaki and May, right, their upside, you're kind of hoping one of these guys like breaks through, right? And I think like last year, the team went into the season thinking like, hey, Bobby Miller like might emerge as like one of the best pitchers in baseball, right? And then when that becomes a zero, right? When you get like nothing out of that, that's like a problem, right? And I think here, from that group of three that I just mentioned, there's Sasaki, May, and Gonsolin. You're kind of right. And Gonsolin, keep in mind, like made an All-Star team one year, right? I mean, Sasaki's supposed to be the best pitching prospect in baseball.
Batman.
Obviously, they love May, you know. And at this point, I'm just kind of looking at this and like, in all seriousness, like
Code
outside of
Red.
maybe one of these guys being like an opener, like in a bullpen game, do you trust any of these guys more than you would like a bullpen game at this point? And I don't really think you would like in a playoff game, like unless you absolutely had to.
I think the counter here is Walker Buehler was probably in this category too last year and ended up working out. And again, it's like
Well, Walker Buehler had done stuff before.
and that's fair. And Tony Gonsolin's but even Tony Gonsolin, like outside of like a half season where he was an all-star, like hasn't been at that level.
No, no.
Catman. Hey, can I tell you my favorite elevator story? I gotta tell you. So,
Okay.
1988 World Series, Game One. I'm in the aux box. I'm doing like a fifth sidebar. So I take the elevator down early to get there for post-game interviews. And as the door is closing, this old lady with a walker is trying to get on. So they hold it up. the old lady gets on, and but when she gets on the elevator, I can hear the announcer saying, "Now batting Kirk Gibson." I run out of the elevator, jump in a seat, and watch the home run. So thanks the old lady in the walker is the only reason I saw
In
the
'88?
home run. 88.
How did this not come up last year?
Oh, I'm sure I've discussed this many times. I've
I
worn
have
out the
not heard
commercial.
about the old lady at the walk before
Yeah, the
that.
old lady in the walker, and she got on. But when the doors were closing, they said Kirk Gibson batting. I jumped out of the elevator, grabbed a seat, watched history. I
What'd you
loved it.
write that day?
I don't know, some
Remember what the
fifth
fifth sidebar
sidebar.
was?
I probably wrote Bobby Ojeda or something. I don't know what I wrote. I was so down in the dregs. But you know what? I sat next to our sports editor, Bill Dwyer, and I spent the whole game telling him baseball stories of behind the scenes and trying to, impress him. And sure enough, the next year they offered me the Dodger beat. So it was a game well worth it for me. Where I
Wow.
said I just kissed his butt the whole game.
Nice. Winner number one, Kirk Gibson. Winner number two, Bill
Oh,
Plaschke.
you
Well,
got it, absolutely.
speaking of weird ways to get ahead, Flash, did you notice what Jack did at the beginning of this on this intro?
No, what do you
He
say?
introduced us as former beat writers, now columnists. The implication is that Jack is going to be the next
Oh,
columnist.
no, no, no.
You just have to get a little bit meaner every now and then.
Yeah, but I think LA Times columnist has to be more true to his family. He's got to be more of a family. He's got to be more of a mom and dad guy. So
We're going to Mother's Day dinner.
Mother's Day dinner? It's a Sunday. It's a night game. Is it a night game Sunday?
No.
So
Max. They
it's a
don't
it's
they
a
don't
day
do
game.
Sunday night baseball at Chase Field.
So how many texts are you going to send your mom saying, "I'll be there in 2 minutes. I'll be there in two
Oh,
minutes."
they're gonna come to the game and then we're gonna go. I'll have to write quick. I gotta write on deadline that day anyway, so
What are you going to do? Buy her a hot dog from the stand?
That's great, Jack.
I'll just bring her down one from the press box.
Make her wait at least 30 minutes. I guarantee you'll make her wait at least 30 minutes because you have one more quote to get, one more thing to write. I can see the text right
Let's
now.
hope for a blowout on Sunday. All right, I want to go back to something Dylan said earlier about the offense and not having concern about, eventually it's going to get to a place they're okay with. Does that mean your concern level with guys like Max Muncy, Michael Conforto, some of the other struggling hitters, is that they'll eventually be somewhat productive? Is it that they can work around that? I mean, how do you guys feel about some of these guys who are still struggling in the lineup right now? And kind of where it leaves them as the Dodgers start to think big picture about their roster this season.
Well, with Tommy Edman out, that really hurts him, and I don't trust James Outman, and I'm starting to turn on Muncy. I'm slowly turning on Muncy. I loved him and I supported him last week, but he's got glasses now, and they're not working. He's like was he 3 for 19 since getting the glasses? I'm concerned about Muncy, and that's the huge concern there because they can adapt to anything, but they can't adapt to having a big hole at third base there.
I'm still waiting on Muncy. Again, we're what in like year 2 or 3 now of this Chris Taylor watch. You know,
Oh yeah.
I mean, and he's had too many kind of like big moments, I think, over the years that I think at this point it'd be a little bit premature
And,
to,
All right,
I mean, look,
who's had more big playoff moments, Muncy or Taylor? I think CT has.
uh,
Home run against the Cardinals in the wild card
I
game.
mean, especially in games they've won. I mean, Muncy's biggest postseason moment was the 18th inning homer, but
Right.
he did set an MLB record for on base streak in the NLCS last year.
CT saved him in 2000 and what was it,
21.
18? Yeah, 21 with a
Oh,
diving
and
catch
there's
against
the catch
against the
from
Brewers.
Milwaukee.
yeah,
That was 18.
Yeah,
yeah.
he had the wild card home run against the Cardinals. I go with CT, bigger moments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of the two of them, Muncy's a guy who repeatedly the last couple seasons has started slowly. Now, as we've talked about, like the lack of power, I think has probably been the biggest concern. Yeah, one home run right now. But as someone who I think, you just look at like the playing time. The Dodgers still clearly have some level of trust in him that over time he'll be able to correct his swing. Like you said, he's wearing these glasses. It's like a similar situation to Kike Hernandez last year. Max Muncy said he has 20/12 vision, but is like left eye dominant because he has an astigmatism in his right eye. It's just small things that I think have just kind of kept his season off kilter. Now, will it eventually turn? It might not. And if it doesn't, I think that's going to become a bigger conversation for the Dodgers in the next couple months. But, he's a guy who has kind of come back from slower starts like this before, where you have Chris Taylor, who, is starting like once every 2 or 3 weeks at this rate. At the end of that game against Atlanta, I thought that was a very glaring example of he was the last guy left on the bench. They had two of their worst other hitters up at the plate in Miguel Rojas and Austin Barnes in tough right on right matchups. And instead of having, somebody on the bench, especially a left-handed bat that you could turn to in that moment, they couldn't. And to me, that game was a very good example of like, that sort of situation won't pop up much where you're at the end of a game like that and you got to make some tough pinch hitting decisions. But if you're going to go back and win another World Series, you are going to have to win those kinds of contests down the line. And to do that, yeah, they're going to need more production from some of those guys at the bottom of the order, or they're going to need other guys to come in, which I think is why the way Hae-Sung Kim has played this week has been very encouraging to them because, his progress right now is further ahead than they thought it would be given where he looked in spring training.
So a lot of fans are asking, why does his uniform say HS Kim? I mean, I realize that that's his first name. Why doesn't it just have Kim on the back of his jersey?
I think that's something a lot of the Korean players do, and I actually need to check exactly why that is the case. But Ha-Sung Kim of the Padres, I believe, does the same thing with his. Might just be like a style thing.
I love watching him run. He's so fast. Is he the fastest guy on the team? Is he faster than Otani?
He's definitely like quicker, and I think his speed is more of a weapon, just kind of overall than Otani's is. I think Otani like obviously has great straight line speed and can steal a lot of bases, but Kim is a more. Yeah, I put it this way. I don't know if even Shohei Ohtani's getting from second to third on that dropped third strike that Kim did in Atlanta to get to third base in that moment where the Dodgers, couldn't complete the comeback. But the bat's been good. He had one bad play defensively yesterday in Miami, but overall the defense has been fine. He's played center field. And yeah, with Tommy Edmond out at least through the rest of this weekend, there's some hope he'll be back when the team's next homestand starts next week. But as long as he's out and as long as Teoscar Hernandez is out, which it'll be at least for a couple weeks, there's probably going to be some runway here for Kim to play, which is not something that was part of the plan initially. He was supposed to come up, be around the team for a few days, get some big league life experience until Edmund came back. But Edmund's taken a little longer than they initially thought, and it's given Kim an opportunity to, yeah, show like a swing that he has a wider base. He's transferring his weight better. He's generating a little more pop, and he's been able to show off the bat to ball skills that made him a good hitter in Korea.
Jack and I talked about this a couple days ago, but just that there was a backhand play when Kim was starting at short that he wasn't able to make. I think I told Jack about this the next right maybe that night or the next day. I kind of remember watching that thinking, I think Mookie Betts makes that play, right? And kind of this idea maybe that like I don't know, Mookie Betts is starting to look like a real shortstop now. And where do you guys think as far as like the chance of this actually sticking and becoming like a real thing? Because I think that's always kind of the thing, right? Whenever a guy's like not a shortstop, and you always kind of think like, well, so and so would have made the play. And here in this case, the guy that I was kind of referring to was Mookie Betts.
Turned a great DP yesterday. I agree. I look at him and I'm thinking now for the first time ever, I'm thinking this is a shortstop.
The sort of arc he would need to be on to like stick at that position for the whole year and into the postseason. Like he's hitting every checkpoint, so far. There's still, the cutoff throws, where to position himself in those situations is something that's still a little bit of a work in progress. He's been trying to be better at, catching and tagging at second base. But the fact that that's where a lot of his focus is now, and that the fielding, the throwing, the fundamental plays, he made a great play going up the middle on the other side of second base. I think that first game in Miami that, even I was talking to the Dodgers' former first base coach and Marlins manager now, Clayton McCullough, who was really close with Mookie Betts last year and during his time on the Dodgers staff. And, to him, he's like, this is night and day compared to where I saw him at the end of last year. And didn't surprise him. Most people that you talk to about this whole switch, the one thing they say is don't bet against Mookie his ability to make this switch to get his body where it needs to be, to get his fundamentals where it needs to be. And then the other encouraging part for the Dodgers is that his bat has looked a little bit better. He's not anywhere near back to his typical level of production. But I think he had 4 or 5 multi-hit games this past week. He talked about after he lost all that weight at the start of the season from his stomach virus, it kind of he was trying to chase some bat speed as he was coming back from that, and then got into some bad habits that he's been working through. But the main point there is that he felt like that's the reason his offense had started slowly, not that he was playing shortstop. And as long as his offense continues to improve and his shortstop play is anywhere near this level, yeah, I think it's a really, or at least an increasingly realistic possibility that he's could be their shortstop for the long term this season.
All right, going back to Kim's base running on Sunday against the Angels, I think at home, it's run the bases not day, where the kids come after the game and run the bases. If you had would you bring your kids to do that? I never would in 100 million years. The line stretches all the way back out the stadium, and they're not really running the bases. There's so many kids on the bases, it's like jog the bases, and kids are falling over, hitting each other, running each other. It's a living hell on run the bases night. Well, Dylan,
I for one loved running the bases at Chase Field as a kid. It was a great thing.
Yeah, well, probably nobody showed
I,
up at Chase Field.
yeah, well, it's a shorter line for sure.
I guess I'm lucky. My kids don't like baseball enough to. They've never asked to like even go to a game. Or a
Really
couple times.
passing on the love for the game in the Hernandez house.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, Dylan. So have your kids been to? When was the last time your kids have been to a game?
Baseball?
Yeah.
Well, Tani was with the Angels for sure. I mean, they've
Oh
never
my
been to Dodger
God.
Stadium.
Oh,
They
is it
want to
when
pay
you
like
wrote your column about what great family fun the Angels are because no one goes?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. No, like I mean, you get through that when to the parking booth, you could get through that it's faster than the line at Jack in the Box, you know. You go there, you get a whole row of seats to yourself, and people are pretty friendly when they know the team's gonna suck, right?
It is
There
great.
were
Angel
there were
Stadium,
these
Angel Stadium
college
is
kids
great.
next to us, right? And instead of getting all drunk and angry because their team was losing, they were giving my kids peanuts and stuff. I think it's great. I think every city, every two-city team market needs one of the teams to be crap so that it's cheap to go to. Nobody wants to go
I
there.
agree. If you have to go
I
to
think
one game in Southern California, you have a family, you want to go to the Angel game.
I miss the
So much
Clippers being
easier.
in the at the sports arena. I
It's
really miss
cheaper
that.
at
When I was in
least.
high school, you go there, by the second half, some ushers come in. Hey, you kids want to sit on the floor? Sure, because nobody was there.
It's great.
Yeah,
Parking's easy, traffic's easy, everybody's nice.
yeah. Right now we got one bad team in LA. The Galaxy is terrible. Their tickets are like plunging through the floor right now. So my kids will be going to Galaxy games very soon.
All right, so I bought season tickets this week. Guess to what sport?
Sparks.
WNBA.
Yes, that's right. It's what I can afford.
I was
I
gonna
got
say,
12 games for $700.
wow, 2 tickets?
My daughter loves the Sparks, so I go to games.
Are they
She
going to
has,
be good?
huh?
Are they going to be good?
No, they stink. They got Kelsey Plum.
Oh yeah, Kelsey Plum era.
Yeah, she's okay, but I'm not a big Cameron Brink fan. I like Rakia Jackson. We'll see. They've been so poorly run for the past several years. You go watch the other team, and of course that season ticket package includes Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever, and she's worth watching.
Those are the tickets you're selling to recoup your
No,
investment.
no, I'm not gonna miss that game.
My wife is an Iowa fan. I've got a very upfront view of the Caitlin Clark experience. It's just fun.
All right, so also next week they have which bobblehead day would you go to? Mookie Betts, Otani, 50-50, Vin Scully, or Will Smith?
Uh, and Scully one's kind of cool. It's like young Vin Scully, I think.
Yeah, it's a young Vin Scully,
Well,
but
Mookie doesn't look like Mookie.
the problem with going to Otani is you got to get there so early because the lines are so long. Because nobody understands it. Everybody's going to get one, but nobody knows that. But who wins this weekend series?
Uh,
I'd say they split.
yeah.
They win the Yamamoto start.
The only way that Jack wins is if Jack gets done in time on Sunday. I still think you're not going to get done on time on Sunday. I still think.
Oh, that's right. They're going to probably run a bullpen game that day.
They all do a bullpen game. You're so screwed, Jack.
Many pitching changes.
Hey, they got Ben Kasparius, bulk innings. We'll fly right through.
Happy Mother's Day. See you at 9:00. That's a nightmare, Jack. Oh my God.
Where are you taking her? Like Chivo?
I haven't.
Hanny's?
No, not Hanny's. Maybe
Why not Hanny's?
we did Chivo last year, I think, when we did this one of the times.
But really, don't moms want brunches? Don't you want a brunch instead of dinner?
Oh, it's a day game, so
Take her up to the Chase Field press box.
But you know what? You could
Yeah,
always
they
greet
don't
her.
have TGIF Fridays in left field.
You can always greet her with a big hug in the morning on Mother's Day. Oh no, you can't. You're not staying with her. You're going to get points. Sorry about that.
All right, well,
Terrible.
We've now debated Mother's Day etiquette, the Dodgers, the Sparks, the Angels, and bobbleheads. So, anything else you guys want to throw in here?
I'm good.
All right. Yeah, we're good.
Another smooth ending to this show, I say.